Hey everybody, it's Rebirth the Legend here. This is probably gonna be one of the last parts of the Dota Fundamentals series. I mean, I'm sure I can always add stuff as I think of things, but this one's gonna be about analyzing your objectives in a game. In the beginning, there could be another one about reassessing objectives in a game, but for now, I think we'll just make that as a separate video. So this one's kind of will be a quick one. So what I want to talk about here is when you enter a game, looking at your hero, looking at the enemy's heroes, looking at your team's heroes, and figuring out what is the way that you wanna, what is your purpose this game, right? So we're gonna try and do this from a few perspectives on this game. This is just one of the most recent ranked games I have. The other one was kind of shitty, so we're not looking at that one. But yeah, so we're gonna look at each hero and figure out what our goals are here, and maybe talk about how they change over time as well. So let's see who we're gonna start with here. All right, let's look at a CM. The way I'd see this probably going is, I would think. Let's pause for this. Okay, so let's say I'm in Bristleback, right? I would assume that it is a defensive tri-line. Oh wait, there's an IO. I'm getting things confused. Okay, I'm the Bristle. I would assume... it might be dual lanes. They could send the Abaddon IO off, and that would probably be most ideal for the Bristle, because be able to put on a lot of pressure. So I'd assume that if it's a 3v1, just try and soak your experience, get level 2 or 3, and then you'll be able to play aggressive in the lane, right? I'm not a great Bristleback player, but I think that's what you'd want. At level 1, you're not quite tanky enough to take on a 3v1, but if you can just manage to soak that little bit of experience, block your creep waves, get to a decent level, you should be able to apply pressure that lane. But generally, the overarching goal in this game, I think, if he looks at his team, is you got an Oker who is was a DPS like powerhouse, right? He just needs someone to stand in front for him. Bristleback can totally do that. You have an aim who's going to be split pushing, so you're not really going to be 5-manning. You're going to need a very strong 4-man. So Bristleback should be itemizing to have a very strong 4-man, where he's basically the front line for that. Because he has a CM and Alina who are people who can do damage, can CC, can hold people in place, have like a reasonable amount of nukes. So in general, that's what you should be looking to do. But in terms of the laning phase, my first thought would be try and safely get my experience, and then apply pressure once I hit level 2 or 3. Once I got like 2 in Quill, 1 in Bristleback, or at the very least like 1 in 1. That's when I'd really start trying to apply that pressure. As you can see, that's not going to be the case. It looks like he's going to be more in a 1v1. So let's talk about what I want to do as an anti-mage, right? I think it's probably going to be an offlane Abaddon, maybe a dual lane Abaddon IO is also a possibility. And in that case, my goal is to get the farm I can, and obviously never die, which really shouldn't be a challenge against that. I have 2 supports that can get kills, so it would be good if, like, let's say if just a solo Abaddon, sorry, so if it's just a solo Abaddon, or if it's the Abaddon IO, I think the Lina wants to stand basically next to me and then just harass the Abaddon. Just keep right-clicking him when he goes up for creeps, just like their IO should be trying to do that to me, but she's probably a little better at it, has a little more damage, and way more range than an IO. So I think she'd be a little better in that dual lane. The CM, I think she should look at this and say, my job is to get my level 3 in the jungle as fast as possible, which is about 3.5 minutes. That'll help the Bristle apply pressure, because it gives him tons of mana. It'll help the Invoker win his lane, because he can just throw out spells willy-nilly. He'll always have a Sunstrike available, because he'll never be short on mana. It'll let the Lina spam out some more Dragon Slaves, and it'll allow me to start rotating as quickly as I can. Because when I look at myself as the CM, I say, okay, what are my kill potential once I hit like level 3 or 4? Once I have 1 point in each one of these abilities, what can I do? All right, let's look up here. We'll say if it's an Abaddon, if it's regardless what the lane is here, when I come up here before this Abaddon is 6, I'm going to be able to kill someone, right? In conjunction with the Lina and the Anti-Mage. Anti-Mage does a lot of right-click, Lina has a lot of nukes and some CC. As long as she has that setup, life is easy. And Frostbite's an excellent setup for LSA. So I would say, okay, I get my level 4 in the jungle, so I don't steal the XP from the safe lane, and then I can apply pressure to that safe lane. And can I go mid? What are my options in middle? And I look at mid, and mid's going to have a Shadow Fiend. Shadow Fiend's a very gankable hero. You have an Invoker, who is someone who puts out a lot of damage. So, like, ganking mid's a totally great option. It's something you also want to do. So when I'm CM, I need to get my level 4 ASAP, and I just need to start ganking non-stop. Because these should be kills in almost every single lane. The off lane would be kind of hard, because Bristleback doesn't have any CC. So you'd have to time it where the PA won't have a creep to blink strike to escape the gank after your Frostbite runs out. But the PA is killable, it's just a kind of harder kill. You have to time it with creep waves so that she won't have anywhere to blink strike to, and she just has to sit there and fight. So those are the type of things you kind of want to look at. So the reason I wanted to explain that is because I want you to understand how important it is when you're going into a ranked game to not just like pick your hero, mindlessly go in. Because I'm sure we've all had this moment. Like even, I mean, I don't do this as much as I should have. And if you do this every game, you shouldn't have any of those moments where you're like, huh, there's an enemy Abaddon in this game, or something like that, right? Where, like, all of a sudden this guy shows up on the map after 10 minutes, you're like, oh, there's been a jungling Bloodseeker this whole time? Like, that should literally never happen. You should always be completely aware of what the enemy team's composition is, what your goals are in the game. And by not knowing what those heroes are, you clearly didn't take that assessment of what you need to do in a game. Because, like, let's say you're a roaming bounty hunter, right? Like, you pressure mid, and you pressure the safe lane, and you just keep running back and forth between those. You do some stuff, and then 10 minutes goes by, and you get ruptured, and you're like, huh, oh, there's been a Bloodseeker. I could have followed him around in the jungle the whole time and annoyed the shit out of him, which would have done, like, just as much as missing kills in these lanes, or even maybe getting kills in these lanes, by giving them basically a free extra core, you know? So that's one of those things where you need to assess what your goal in the game. Because, like, let's say if there's no jungler and I'm a bounty hunter, I want to pressure mid, and I want to pressure safe lane, and I want to pressure the off lane, or whatever. But once there's a jungler, like an LC or someone who's like a comparably very weak jungler, it opens up the possibility of you putting a high amount of pressure, just completely gimping that hero. Because you just walk in, you take their last hits. If it's a low HP jungler, like I think Bloodseeker struggles a little bit, particularly if he's not getting the last hits because the bounty hunter's killing him. You could totally get a kill on that Bloodseeker too. And like not that you'll be able to camp them literally for the whole first 10 minutes. I'm sure you'll end up with other things to do. But preventing that Bloodseeker from getting like a 6-minute level 6 or whatever is a huge advantage in and of itself. So the reason I wanted to talk about these things is because you always want to like use your laning phase efficiently and serve your purpose in like a game, right? That seems kind of obvious, but I think it's very important that people understand that you have to go into a lane, or you have to go into a game with like your goals in mind and understand how those goals can change. Because assuming this is a dual lane, so I think our CM 100% wants to jungle. I think our Lina just needs some levels and then whatever. Assuming this is a 2v1 or a 2v2 lane where it's AM and Lina versus either Abaddon or Abaddon IO, I think it's pretty obvious that the Lina just wants to sit back and harass, maybe do a stack pull or something, let me creep under tower so she gets her experience, and we kind of get our advantage that way. I think it's pretty obvious that's what your goal is, but you can see how these objectives can change, right? And we'll talk about that in a second, because these objectives do change in a lane, because they're actually aggro trying this in the first, I think only for like 2 minutes, then they just leave the lane pretty quickly and try and rotate around. Good, fuck that guy. Get Sunstruck. So I think we thought they were stealing the room. When I get to lane, we realize, first of all, like one of the adaptions I don't think is okay. They'll see a tri lane and like this, I think this CM's like, oh, I'll come help you in the tri lane. I'm like, no, just jungle. What are you doing? Like there's no point. They're already gimping themselves by going into an aggro tri. And like, don't give them the satisfaction of like feeding into that by messing with your, like in this case, the CM's goals in that game, where the CM could just jungle really quick and then gank. Like I'd rather be in a 2v3 for like 3 minutes or whatever, and then have a level 4 CM come into this game and this lane and gank, than oh no, it is a 2v2. Okay, I thought it was an aggro try. Did they get all 3 bounties? Or all 4? No, we got 1. Fuck yeah. Oh no, we got 2. What the hell? Oh, we must have gotten theirs. That's weird. Yeah, so I see this lane, and I think my CM is like, yo, you want me to come help, or you want a lane swap? I'm like, nah, I live for this shit, it's fine. So here, my goal in this lane is, 1, I need to get my poor man's shield ASAP to mitigate the harass I'm going to receive from an IO and from creeping under tower. 2, I need to aggro creeps towards me to get my CS while taking that minimal amount of harassment. And then, assuming this lane holds, I just keep doing that. Because their goal is to shut me down from farm and then kill me. I'm an anti-mage and they're an Abaddon IO. They cannot kill me. It is not possible unless I do something really stupid that they kill me. So I just want to keep aggroing creeps, get my farm, and get my solo experience. I think this is also where I kicked Alina out, and I was like, fuck these guys, go aggro on them. And the reason I said that is because I know that these guys, their objectives in this lane are very, very hard in a 2v1. They're not going to be able to apply adequate pressure to me to stop me from farming. While if I put a Lina and a Bristle down here against a PA Lion, it's going to be very fucking hard for that PA to get farmed without getting completely ruined in lane. Finish this one up. Yeah, so that's why I kicked them out, because I understand that while we could try and contest this in like a 2v2 or a 3v2 scenario, that's just feeding into what their lane wants. They want a lane that sustains, harasses, and annoys me, and mitigates my experience. So you take that goal away from them. By understanding their objectives and what they need to do to win this game, and adjusting your strategy to take away that goal, you can win that, so you accomplish your objectives by denying their ability to accomplish theirs, right? So that's like the whole sum of Dota. You need to accomplish as many of your objectives as you can while denying their ability to accomplish theirs. And if you do more of that than they do to you, then you win the game, pretty much. Yeah, so our CM should be jungling, but I guess she chooses to just immediately go into the offlane. That's okay. Because honestly, this tri-lane is way scarier than that tri- Oh my fucking god, someone better be fucking dying. That was fun. My fucking mom's flight got canceled. I have to go pick her up. This game sucks. This game of real life sucks. So what are we talking about here? Okay. So I feel like this Lion actually has an awkward life. He's got a mid lane where if he gets a stun and this guy hits his raises, he can win, but he's like the only real like control on his team. So his life is very hard for this lane because he can't do too much. Like, you want to protect your PA so she can farm. Alternatively, she can just get, he could abandon this lane and just keep pressuring mid and roaming top or something. Because, like, if he gets a stun impale on me and they're able to get some harass in, that can hurt my laning too, even though they won't necessarily get a kill, which kind of sucks, but that's one way to do it. The PA can jungle, or lane with just Stifling Dagger too. So I think his objective in this game is probably the hardest in the first 10 minutes, because it's hard for him to actually do anything. I think his biggest thing he can do is put pressure on our mid, which is the Invoker, and if this guy hits good raises with it, then that's good. But for now, he just has to soak XP, try and protect his PA, and then 3 or 4 minutes in, he's going for those constant ganks once his Shadow Fiend's level 3 and can do a triple raise combo. That's really what he's waiting for. Oh my god. I'm just ignoring that. I get it, your flight's canceled. I'm coming. Yes, mother.
Hey, don't leave yet. No, I'm going back in a few minutes. There might be something else to do here.
Okay, that's fine.
But don't leave yet, but answer your phone and go back, okay?
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Pain in my ass. Yeah, so understanding what your hero does in a given game, wow, can map your movements throughout the laning phase and how you lane. Because, like, if you don't take that assessment, imagine if this Lion just sits here the whole thing, babysits a PA, but the PA can't really get farmed because she's getting aggroed on by like a Lina and a Bristle. You just sit there and you take half of her experience, maybe you do a stack pull, and then maybe you get your 6 by like level 12. But now your PA is also 6 at level 12. Or 12 minutes in, sorry. Not level 6 at level 12. You're level 6 at 12 minutes in or something like that. Like, you can do that, but like you clearly haven't looked at this game and figured out what your role in it is. All you've done is gimp your core and gimp yourself by underutilizing your hero, and by virtue of doing that, you've taken away some space or farm from the PA. Because like one big thing when you're against a hard lane is getting all your experience and then using those higher levels to jungle quicker and farm lanes faster. So obviously, as you increase in levels, you get stronger, so you can jungle and push lanes and all that even faster. Like she needs more levels in Stifling Dagger because I don't know why it doesn't say that. It doesn't say in the description anymore, but the range used to be like a static 1,000 or 1,200 or something, and now it scales up. So she needs levels in the Stifling Dagger to really use it to farm. So I don't know why that's not in the fucking description, but is it? It's alt click. Nope. Doesn't say it. So yeah, that was pretty much what I wanted to go over. Just to give another hypothetical example that I encounter sometimes. Let's say I have a safe lane jug. They have like, let's say a Huskar. Let's do something fucking retarded. Let's say a Huskar Abaddon offlane, right? And I have a safe lane jug. I've got a jungle axe, and I'm an Earthshaker, right? So if I have a safe lane jug against an Abaddon Huskar, what the fuck am I going to do in that lane as an Earthshaker? And like, if I'm not thinking about the game, I'd probably sit here, maybe I'll throw fissures at this guy, maybe I'll do stack pulls. But the real answer is, I look at this lane, and I'm like, okay, well, the jug really can't die, right? He just has to have a TP, and they don't have damage. He can creep under tower, he's got healing ward, right? So he'll probably be fine alone. So in that scenario, when you're that Earthshaker, you have to acknowledge that your safe lane is a wash. There is not too much you can do there, unless your Juggernaut gets that solo experience, gets a level advantage, and then you can come back and maybe a well-placed fissure can get you a kill on either a Huskar or a get you a kill on either a Huskar or the Abaddon in that lane, right? But sitting here for the first 5 minutes serves no purpose. Earthshaker can do very well just by like roaming into mid lane, hucking a fissure at their mid, and like it doesn't even have to get a kill. It can just, you throw the fissure, maybe your mid is able to get a few extra harass auto attacks on him for free, and maybe that fucks him up just enough to give your mid that advantage, right? And like he has to be constantly worried that an Earthshaker is going to come if he plays up over here. Like let's say it's a matchup where it's like a who is Viper dominate? I don't know. We'll say like Viper versus TA or something. This Viper is playing hyper aggressive on your TA, and he's all the way up on your side of the river. You come up here, you hit him with a nice fissure. He can't back up. He's stuck there for that 8 seconds where the fissure block has gone through. So he gets stunned, and then maybe a whole another creep wave's coming. So now he has creep waves and whatever, and he has to run the long way around. And even if you don't kill him, that forced him into a position where he has to run around, take more hits than he wanted to, and maybe miss a creep wave. Like it's really annoying to get camped mid. And as that Earthshaker, you have to realize that you camping mid is way more useful than whatever this is. And you can camp mid as an Earthshaker without taking any XP from your mid. And then when your mid goes to jungle or gank, if it's something like a puck or whatever, leaves a lane, you get that nice experience. You get some gold, maybe you'll get a reasonably timed blink dagger. Just by roaming around and not dying, you'll get passive gold enough to get like a pretty quick blink dagger. Or like Trank Soul Ring or whatever, just want to keep spamming fissures. Another really great thing on Earthshaker, I mean this is kind of Earthshaker specific, but you can do the same thing where you roam into the offlaner and bother the shit out of the offlaner. That's something like you could say roam and bother stuff as like as like an Earth Spirit or a Monkey King or whatever. Just being there is just so fucking annoying because like as a safe laner, like I understand my relative strength to my lane, and then when an unknown element gets into the lane without me being aware of it, like that completely fucks up my perception of like what I can do in the lane. And once that surprise comes out, it overwhelms my lane, and that's how you die, right? By misjudging your lane, and one of the ways to misjudge that is to not have all the information of what's happening in your lane, like i.e. an Earthshaker roamed here and threw a fissure at me, and now I can't back up. in a way that I previously thought I could. So I was playing up because I thought I could retreat. Now I can't retreat. Now I'm dead. One specific Earthshaker thing I like to do is you have an offlaner like a Bristleback who needs some levels first. One of the things that made Earthshaker viable is his ability to block his creep wave, and then he would be an offlaner who's like a good initiator, has a lot of stuns, and whatever. So people just block their creep wave because he's a horribly weak laner, right? But you can control your creep wave by constantly pulling it back by fissure blocking your creep wave. It got a little more difficult now, but it's still possible. You can. So if you don't like, if I throw a fissure like right here, and I don't completely hit from tree to tree, the creeps will just walk around it. So what you want to do is you connect from like tree to tree, from gap to gap or whatever. So like hypothetically, if I'm a roaming Earthshaker, I know I can't do anything in the safe lane level 1, I'll help out my offlaner. What I'll do is I'll throw my first fissure here, right as the creep spawn, I'll pop a clarity, I'll walk over to here, I'll toss another fissure right here, and pull the creep wave back another 8 seconds. So my offlaner gets his first creep wave right here, or under tower or whatever, which gives them that free first wave, which for anyone who's played support, you know, like one of your biggest jobs, when possible, is to zone out an offlaner. Like to completely zone out an offlaner when possible from that first wave, keep them at level 1 for as long as possible, because like if you look at someone like a Bristle, once he gets level 2, he's way more annoying to deal with, and once he's level 3, he's incredibly hard to deal with, and then his scaling gets progressively more annoying. And there's many offlaners who are like that, like an Axe with just spin is annoying, an Axe with spin call is potentially deadly. So the longer you can keep them off that level 2, the better you're doing as an as a support in a safe lane. But like an Earthshaker can completely negate that. It's really good. I love doing that when I'm Earthshaker, because it completely throws off their perception of how to win the safe lane, which is great. Yes, I think we could pretty much end this one here. I think I kind of talked about what you want to assess. Maybe I can kind of go a little fucking next level meta on that, and we'll just talk about. Like, it's important you understand what each hero does in the game in order to make that assessment. So in that sense, like if you're a much newer player, it might be hard to do this, but like you can always ask questions, right? Like that's totally an option where you could just just got clarity queued up. You can ask your team questions, ask for advice, and you might get good advice, you might get bad advice, but at the very least it gives you things to think about. Like you'll have safe laners who aren't like as selfless or as aware, I guess, as I am, like where I told them, like, get out of my lane, I can do this by myself, it's fine. Someone's like, no, we have to contest this lane, give me complete free farm, I need absolute free farm. And they might be demanding that, and they might think they need that, when in actuality they shouldn't, but they're bad, so they do. So it might be worth, like, showing up and doing, like, some sort of defensive tri-lane against something like this. Even though I think a defensive tri-lane against an Abaddon IO is probably one of the worst things you could do in this situation, because they're going to out-sustain you and out-harass you. But, like, if your safe laner needs that, you can ask him what he needs. Because if he says, like, I can't do this alone, then he probably can't do it alone. Even if you think his Akira is mechanically capable of doing it, you have to take individual skill into account as well. So on that note, I'll leave you with that, where you should take into account what your team thinks, and like just overall analyzing the game and figuring out what you think is the best way to play it. While it could be the objectively right way to play it, which is a really hard statement to make in Dota, but while it could be the objectively right thing to do, and what he wants could be generally much more wrong, it still can be the right thing to listen to what he wants, just because it allows you to function more as a team. So I'll leave you at that, but the cliff notes of this is make sure you're always thinking about what your hero can do in a given game, because like I said, what you can do in a given game is going to constantly change based off each team's lineup. Like a lion who has like Avenge support with him and they can like roam really fucking hard together is way different than a lion with an IO support in a dual lane. Like it's just completely different how you want to play. Like I said, his role in this game was very hard because he's the only stun on his team. He's the only stun on his team, and he needs to put a lot of pressure on mid while also saving the PA to some extent. Like basically his job is the fucking hardest in this game. And if I remember correctly, he's failed spectacularly. I think he doesn't even rush a Blink Dagger, so like I basically should never die, and my only death's because I'm retarded. Yeah, so he just doesn't, which is weird because I think he was their highest MMR. doesn't say here. I think he was like 5,200 or something. Somewhere in that. He's definitely over 5K. Yeah, and like he just doesn't do like any of the stuff he's supposed to do, so they're like never at an advantage in this game because of that. But yeah, constantly evaluate what your hero does in a given game. Understand the strengths and weaknesses of your hero. So if you play a hero a lot, you'll have a very good understanding of that. And if you do not play a hero a lot, it will make it harder to make those judgment calls because you won't understand the limits of your hero and what it does. But I actually played all these heroes except Invoker. I played Invokers a lot. Played all of them a fair amount. But so I have like a good understanding of what each one of these heroes can do, particularly CM and anti-mage. So like I understood what we were supposed to do and direct your team. And if you think you have that understanding and you're playing with like groups of people, don't be scared to tell people like what to do. You know, if they're gonna be dicks about it, you know, there's gonna be dicks in life. You can't do too much about that. But like if you're trying to function as a team, you need an in-game leader who makes those calls, to go aggro and give up contesting your safe lane. I know I said I was going to end this video, so I guess we'll end it here, because I think we kind of got the point across that you should always be thinking of different ways to approach the game, like what's going to maximize your individual impact in the game, and what's going to maximize the way your team plays a game. The difference when you're solo queuing versus like party queuing is when you're solo queuing, you kind of have to think about just what you can do to maximize. While I said you can take it into consideration if your cores are communicating, you can take that into consideration, try and talk to them. When you're playing like 3 or 5 stacks or something, it's worth talking about what your team as a whole needs to do in order to win the game. But cool, so I hope that video helped people out when they think about how to approach a lane, how to approach a given game as a hero. It's kind of abstract. I didn't want to get like specifically, I want to give these things as examples, not necessarily as like hero instructions, but just give you an idea of how you have to look at like each hero's skill set and how it fits into a given game. Alright, good luck, have fun.